Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Faith sent me a note. Steve, check out the story out of New York. And I only saw this reported in one place, and that was on a website called AM New York, although it got picked up by a couple of different news organizations later. New York City's sheriff's office gets rid of ghost cars across Brooklyn. Ghost cars. Dean Moses wrote this. The New York City Sheriff's Office performed an operation in Brooklyn that saw the removal of ghost cars. And AM New York Metro rode along for the dramatic procedure. Now, a ghost car is an illegal vehicle because it has either an expired paper license plate on it or a counterfeit paper license plate. So a lot of times you're driving down the road, you see a car go by with a paper plate on it. Quite often that's a temporary tag. So some dealerships in some states will issue you a tag that's good for 14 days or some such, and you put that on your car until your actual metal plate arrives. I know some dealerships now that actually have metal plates in inventory, and they'll give you the metal plate. But during COVID, all kinds of crazy things happened where people would get a temporary tag and they would never get the metal plate. So in some places, they would tell you you can keep driving on the expired paper tag if necessary. And some people realize, wait a second, that paper tag from more than like 10 feet away is not really legible or readable to the average human being. So if I'm driving around with a paper plate on my car, the odds are that the cop's not going to go, hey, that's an expired paper tag. And so some people just kept driving on paper tags for whatever reason, or simply counterfeited them because it's quite easy to do with a laser printer and a piece of paper. So authorities have been tackling the influx of automobiles fitted with paper plates in recent months. It's an issue that's been plaguing the city since the start of COVID, and the NYPD aided in the operation within the confines of the 81st Precinct. And they did this all September 1st and 2nd. According to the New York City Sheriff, this illegal scourge not only has insurance implications, it also often goes hand in hand with other crimes, from traffic violations to drug dealing and other forms of violence. So as you can imagine, you get in a car accident and you go walking over to the other party and they got a paper tag on their car and it turns out the tag is fake. What are the odds they've got proper insurance on their vehicle? Many of the paper plate vehicles used in crimes have been documented by the police in shootings and different things in the communities, as well as running red lights and accidents. So they're just overall a danger to the community, said the sheriff. Now, the cars are a danger, but it's in the hands of other people. Illegal plates are something that were prevalent during the pandemic when DMV and other agencies were closed, but they have provisions for this. Now that the DMV is open, it just seems that people have learned to abuse the process. And then the criminal element has also learned how to capitalize on the fact that there are still thousands of these paper plates out on the street. The sheriff's office set up a temporary base of operations inside the grounds of the Boys and Girls High School on Schenectady Avenue between Herkimer and Atlantic. From midnight, they set out from this location and scoured the surrounding streets for unauthorized cars, vans, and minibuses. Once found, the sheriff's office ran the plates to ensure the vehicle in question was, in fact, illicit, and then the removal began. A tow driver would use a wedge to pry the door open slightly before using a thin piece of wire to pop it open, which would often set off an alarm. And sometimes you call that device you're using there a Slim Jim. That's what we used to call it when I drove a tow truck. Some locals staggered out into the night bleary-eyed, lit only by the yellow flashing lights to watch the procedure. The sheriff told AM New York that the public was also instrumental in helping pinpoint the vehicles causing them grief. Not only that, but he also spoke positively regarding Mayor Eric Adams for helping to pool all the resources, which allowed the sheriff's office and the NYPD to work cohesively. I suspect an operation like this is going to go very well in New York compared to other parts of the country, because in New York, so many vehicles are parked on the street, or at least someplace fairly visible from the street. We have a holistic approach towards fighting crime, said the sheriff. We all have an opportunity to interact with each other, pull our resources to solve the issue. This is about public safety. Public safety is not one single agency's problem. It is a community problem. So their approach is tremendous because there's never been the level of communication amongst the agencies. The sharing of resources, the sharing of intelligence that really didn't exist. He's implying it does now, so that's good. Once a vehicle is ready for removal, it is swiftly towed back to the base of operations. This tactic repeated throughout the night until after sunrise. However, the officers had to be cautious amid high crime areas to ensure the safety of both themselves and the public. I've seen videos on YouTube of people whose cars were being towed and they didn't like it and they got involved. And they tried doing things like jumping on top of the tow truck, jumping on top of the car being towed, climbing into the car, about to be towed, and so on. But here, there were police on the scene, so that should help things. The operation went off without a hitch. They picked up 45 vehicles. 45 vehicles just in those couple days during the weekend. At the Boys and Girls High School, search teams looked over the vehicles for contraband. And as indicated, these cars are often linked to crimes. And inside the place, officers with flashlights found large amounts of drugs, everything from unmarked bags of pills to exorbitant amounts of illegal prescription drugs and so on. And it does say here that they searched inside the car with torches. And unless they had pitchforks also, I suspect they mean flashlights. I'm wondering who would write an article about a story out of New York City and use the word torch for a flashlight. These are more things that I don't know the answers to, so I apologize. The sheriff's office is no longer dealing with this. Due to their unique jurisdiction, they handle a large variety of long-term investigations, from animal cruelty and operations such as ghost cars to even more extensive procedures. But the sheriff said this is just one of many strategies being used to combat the illegal activities that are going on in our communities and to combat crime. And this is all collectively to help everybody feel safer. So, yeah, if you've got the torch out, you do look in the boot, but I'm still not sure about the appropriate, most common usages of those words for a writer in New York City. But I can tell you that even before COVID, I remember seeing stories in the news about people who would go onto the internet and advertise that they could get you license plates or get you something that allow you to travel on the roadways and not have to go through the DMV to get that pesky license plate. And so there are places where you can find this stuff for sale. And sometimes I believe it was even as open as like eBay and Facebook Marketplace. But if you think about it, the thing in the back of somebody's window is just a piece of paper with printing on it. And so there are people out there who have gone through the small amount of trouble to set it up so that they can then create their own, because it's just words on paper with boxes and lines and stuff. And so if you wanted to, somebody like that could just go, oh, what type of cars, what make, year, all that stuff, and just fill the information in and then pick an expiration date, somewhere down the road, tape that to your window, and it looks good. And of course, if you get pulled over and the police officer runs it and discovers it's not good, and then you got a big problem on your hands. But they're thinking, well, what are the odds that I'm going to get pulled over, especially considering how many of these are on the road? And Michigan must have gotten this partially figured out, because I practice law in Michigan. This is where I spend the bulk of my time. But I remember, like in, say, June of 2020, okay, a couple months into COVID, everything had been shut down. Much of it was still shut down. Trying to get things like license plates was a nightmare. And so there were times when you could go onto the DMV's website. Michigan's the Secretary of State's office, but you go on that website and try to look for something, and the website wasn't working properly. And again, I'm just going to mention this because it's apropos, but I bought a Viper that summer, okay? And I got personalized plates for it. One of them is up there. And I ordered the plates through the website, and I did not know if my order had gone through, because I was supposed to get a confirmation I didn't get. And then what happened was, you can go onto the website and say you want to buy personalized plates. And it'll say, oh, what do you want? And you can type in anything and hit enter, and it'll tell you that plate is available. So I would go in every couple of days and go, is this plate available, referring to the one that I had ordered? And it kept saying yes, yes, yes. And one day goes, no, not available. At that point, I thought, okay, there's a good chance my order went through. It's always possible somebody else ordered the same plate. It's possible, highly unlikely, but possible. So I got my plate. But during that time, you saw temporary tags everywhere because the dealerships were still selling cars. So if you went into a dealership and bought a car and they gave you a temporary tag and you came back later and go, it's about to expire. Dealerships had been told they could issue further temporary tags to solve that problem. And so with all the tags popping up, it doesn't take rocket science calculations to figure out, oh, if I slap a paper tag in the back of my car and it looks decent, I can probably get away with it. So that's what happened. In case you're curious, the word on the plate, Kaarme, is close to the Finnish word for snake. I say close because the A's should have umlauts over them. But Michigan does not allow umlauts over letters on license plates for obvious reasons, because I don't think anybody does, at least not in America. But yeah, it's the Finnish word for snake, so it's an inside joke that about 3 people get without me explaining to them. And all 3 of those people are in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. There's a large Finnish American community up there. But obviously, snake was taken, viper was taken, snake 1 was taken, viper 1 was taken, one viper 1 was taken. You get it. So I thought to myself, oh, the Finnish word for snake. That's funny. And I actually have had several people go, oh, and you got that because you're an attorney and attorneys are snakes. And I've always said, oh, that's funny. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. And they go, what do you mean you hadn't thought of that? I go, I hadn't had that thought occur to me when I ordered the plates. Why? They go, then what does it mean? I go, snake? The car is a viper. Oh, okay. But it's an understandable misunderstanding. So there you go. But New York City's cracking down on them ghost cars. If you got one, you might want to get a plate. If not, your car might disappear one night. And there you go. So Faith sent me a note and said, Steve, check out the story from AM New York. New York City's sheriff's office gets rid of ghost cars across Brooklyn. Dean Moses wrote it. Thank you very much. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Fill your life with lots of experiences, not lots of things. Have incredible stories to tell, not incredible clutter in your closets.